Hello everyone, David here. I spent a year making a VR game completely by myself, and today I'm going to share exactly how I did it, including the best tips and tricks I learned along the way. If you're thinking of creating your own game solo, hopefully you'll find this useful. It all started about 15 years ago with a simple but hopefully fun idea for a puzzle game. Imagine a city map missing just a few tiles. You place them quickly to stop vehicles from crashing. Like Tetris meets Transport Tycoon. Fun, quick to understand, but challenging. Back in 2013, I put together a rough iPhone prototype, and it worked, more or less, but due to terrible, i.e. non-existent, source control, and being a bit too enthusiastic to reformat my Mac one time, I lost everything except for these couple of screenshots. My first tip is, use GitHub. Fast forward to May 2024. By then, I had lots of Unity experience and a passion for VR, so I decided to revisit the idea and build a prototype using AutoHand for all the grabbing interactions, and Cinti Studio's low-poly 3D assets for quick visual appeal. As you can see, it's pretty basic, but shows that it has the potential to be a fun game. Throughout 2024, I steadily built up the game in my spare time, aiming for a Christmas release. Well, December turned into crunch month, and I worked over 60-hour weeks just to push out an early access version by January in the end. If you're working on your own, you definitely need to keep your scope down. I burnt through my to-do list pretty quickly, but naturally more things get added to it as you go, as you realize some features just need to exist for the whole product to work at all. One of the biggest technical challenges was vehicle movement. Every tile has multiple splines on it for the transport types, so cars, trains, pedestrians, whatever, know where to go. These splines can be straight or can bend however you need. Now, making trains smoothly follow curved tracks turned out to be surprisingly tricky. Trains have multiple bogies, the wheel assemblies, and aligning each one perfectly on the track during a bend required careful calculation. I created an origin point that stayed precisely on the track and a trailing contact point that would rotate the train body into alignment. However, each carriage needed to reference its own historical spline data, making sure each bogie snapped onto the correct bit of track and not some other random nearby tile instead. It might look simple now, but trust me, it was really a lot of work to figure it out. I showed the game to my friends and family often, partly because I like showing off my creations, but also because I really needed the playtesting and feedback. It was really useful seeing how someone totally new would play the game, usually not how I expected as the developer at all. It made me make the tutorial absolutely bulletproof, like players will learn the game, and I coded for every eventuality along the way. I had a friend Gaz who got involved and suggested some cool features as well, like routes for the vehicles, which added some complexity and challenge in getting them to the right destination. He also made a couple of the levels that shipped, so it was nice not to be a completely solo developer all the time. To maximize my potential audience, I aimed for both the Quest Store and Steam. This meant creating an OpenXR compatible version alongside the Meta one. The best method I found was duplicating the main Unity scene and swapping in an OpenXR rig, then using prefabs extensively for all the shared components like the UI and state machine. The rigs were quite different, and I had to make sure the references to things like game objects in the hands were kept up to date. Even small changes, like detecting button presses, required a bit of wrapper code to work in both setups. Even with the issues, I prefer doing it this way compared to retroactively trying to add OpenXR support for PC VR. I wrote my own build tool that would pick the correct main scene to use, and also check things like I've set the correct XR loader and set the right splash screen for the platform. It probably took a day or two in total just to build that, but totally worth it overall. Adding mod support with mod.io was another major milestone. I knew it would involve some tricky UI, and it did, but serializing a level, which is basically a bunch of game objects in a scene, into JSON did present its challenges. In the end, I created a tile bank which stored data on every playable tile and gave them unique IDs. The JSON stores every tile's ID along with its local position and rotation. I needed a fair bit of UI to handle creating new files, editing and deleting them, and to manage the upload process. In terms of mod.io, they have some great examples and support, but I still had to customize its UI panel as I wanted a great big play button to simplify the process of loading at community level. And getting sign-in to work seamlessly with both Steam and Meta required some fiddling with tokens and keys in their backend. But ultimately, it can be done. ChatGPT can be quite helpful here to guide you through integration, and there's a mod.io Discord if you want to speak to fellow developers and the creators themselves. After shipping, I realized I still wanted to add leaderboards. Finding a free cross-platform solution took a little searching, but I eventually decided on PlayFab. It was fairly quick to set up, but does have its own quirks. It only let me set up one environment per title, so I had to use a whole extra title just for the development environment. Also, it only sorts the scores from high to low, but my best scores are the low times, like the fastest times to complete a level. So actually ChatGPT came up with a bright idea: make them negative. They also had to be integers, and all my times were floating points, so I multiply the time by 1,000 and essentially score negative milliseconds in the scoreboard. But it all gets converted back when the user sees the high score table in my UI, so that worked nicely. I went on Fiverr and Upwork and found some fantastic artists to create the game logo and cover art. However, Steam requires many variations in different aspect ratios, sizes and formats, meaning I had to roll up my sleeves and crank out a few variations in Paint.net myself. Here you'll either need to do it yourself or make a very extensive list of assets you'll need for the stores and send it to your artist. If they send you their source files, the Photoshop PSDs, at least you have the option of fixing it later. Music greatly enhanced the game's presentation too. Initially, licensing individual tracks looked expensive, but a customer service agent at Bensound suggested their yearly subscription model, which provided unlimited access to their music library. This subscription was actually a fantastic decision. I ended up using around 20 tracks, giving the game polished, consistent audio experience. I usually hate subscriptions, but since I only needed it for the single year and can use the music in perpetuity now the game has shipped, it worked out well this time. It's definitely cheaper than buying single tracks at £50 to £70 each. Finally, if you're dedicated enough to actually finish your game, which is a massive achievement, you still need to actually do some marketing. Just releasing it and expecting the world and your bank account to light up overnight is not enough. You need to capture the best screenshots possible, edit an exciting video together, and then let people know about it online. Post on Reddit, email VR websites, ask Meta to feature your game, and make some YouTube videos. Hey, like this one. I made a fun video a few weeks ago where I hid free keys to unlock the game, and that worked quite well. And it's worth checking out SideQuest. You can make a new launch page for your game there, and they sometimes run indie showcases which show off all the new titles. To get a player count boost, I made a free version of the game too. It's called Going Loco Free Ride, and gives players the first few levels, plus the ability to create and upload their own. They can also play all the uploaded community levels, so it's pretty generous, but also blatantly upsells players to the full version. Initially, Meta rejected the game and considered it spamming, but a polite email to their submissions team started a meaningful dialogue, and they were very pleasant to work with, actually. To be fair, they are just trying to prevent the 100th Gorilla Tag clone from being uploaded today. So to sum up, here are my top 5 takeaways for solo game developers. Number 1. Keep your scope realistic and flexible. Allow new ideas, but manage your feature creep. Be honest about what you can create on your own. Number 2. Do marketing. Make your game look as good as possible and reach out to people. SideQuest is great for indie developers and can give you a leg up. Emphasize the sexy features of your game when promoting it. Number 3. Plan for multiple platforms early. It prevents a lot of headaches later. It helps if you've done multi-plat before, to be fair. Number 4. Don't expect success on day one. I added many features to my game after it shipped. There's a lot of success bias out there, stories of developers who made it big. That's not true for the majority of devs, especially indie devs. Keep going. And number 5. Fix the bugs. Sometimes an annoying bug can kill excitement in your game. Make sure it's a polished experience when end users get their hands on it. And that's how I successfully built a VR game alone in 1 year. If you're considering creating your own game or have any questions, please leave a comment. I read every single one. You can also check out my games Going Loco and Home Detective on the Quest Store and Steam. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.